Welcome to another inspiring message from Victory Church. We believe that God is at work right now to bring victory to your life. For more information about Victory Church, find us online at www.victorychurchnwa.com.
30, I guess it would be 34 years ago, about this time in the year, it was our very first 6-month, 8-month period of being at the church. And our church was meeting in a room that was quite small. It would seat about 125 people, maybe at the max. Sometimes we could crowd a few more people in than that. And I told our people we're going to do something bigger than we've ever done. And there was a lot of people. In fact, one man called me on the phone. He said, "Pastor," he said, "don't talk about big things to us because we've been told about big things and big things didn't happen. We don't need discouragement again." And I just smiled and understood where he was coming from, and I went on. And what we was going to do, we was going to do our celebration of Easter production, and we was going to bring in animals into the building. Well, our building was too small. If a couple of animals in there, we'd all have to go outside. So it was going to work out that way for us to do it there. So we just had started looking, and we found the girls' gymnasium at the Springdale High School was a possibility for us. And we got down to about this time, and the principal of the school called me and said, "Pastor Coffman, we hear that you're going to bring animals into the gymnasium, and you can't have animals in the gymnasium." And said, we just can't do it. And I said, "Okay." So got off the phone, and I turned around away from people that were standing there waiting on me to answer them, and I just talked to God for a minute. And I turned around and said, the principal says we can't go to that building, so we got to find another option, and I know what it is. So I walked out the door of our facility, which was the fellowship hall of the old First Baptist Church in downtown Springdale on Holcomb. Next door was the old First Baptist Church building that had not been occupied in the worship center for about 14 or 15 years. And they was using the classrooms, etc., in it as a rehabilitation center for drug and alcohol people. And so no one was using that auditorium. So I got somebody, birds were. There was plenty of bird, inside that room. But I grabbed hold of somebody's hand. We walked over to the building, and I walked inside. I walked up to the person there and said, "My name's Pastor Billy Coffman. I'm the pastor of the church next door, and I need to talk to somebody about renting your auditorium here for 3 weeks." And they said to me, "Well, we'll put you through to somebody that can talk to you." And so a man came to me, and he said, "I'm the bookkeeper and secretary treasurer of this group, and what do you need?" And I told him. I said, "We'll pay you the same thing we was going to pay the school. The school wouldn't let us in because we're going to have animals." And I said, "We'll clean up the room. We'll take care of everything ourselves. I just need that room." And he said, "Well, the president, CEO is not here. I'm the one who has to write the checks, and we need the money. So, yes, you can do it." So we had to get together in the next few days, clean out a room, and do everything down to building a set inside that room that would be the city of Jerusalem. We had to build Golgotha. We had to do all the stuff inside that room. It was tons and tons and tons of work. We had to hang lights in the room because we was going to be doing video, and it was actually going to be telecast in Northwest Arkansas what was happening. And so we start working like crazy. Paper mache. Well, it wasn't paper mache, it was cloth mache over chicken wire. We started building mountains. In fact, one of my terror moments, it's a laughable thing now, was on Sunday morning on Golgotha. Golgotha was real thin. It wasn't, all that great, but it looked good. And a chicken got out of a coop and started up Golgotha. And a little child saw the chicken going up Golgotha, and its eyes just lit up and was running toward Golgotha to go up to get the chicken. And I'm going, stop! It's kind of like that paper towel commercial. You're just in slow-mo for a second, but thank God we got the child stopped, and somebody who understood chickens grabbed the chicken and got it off of Golgotha. Now, all of that's the funny part, and there was some serious involved in the fact that we had a lot of work to do. But this is what happened. In 3 weeks' time, over 400 people came to the Lord Jesus Christ. So many people, we never moved back into that little room again. We had too many people to move back into that little room. That rehabilitation center that we was in, people got delivered, set free, got saved out of that rehabilitation center to the place that many of them left there. And to be very candid with you, they started losing patience because God started saving them and healing them and delivering them. And so their patient count was going down, and they wanted us out of the building. Because actually after 3 weeks, we stayed there for a year. And during that year's time, miracles happened. All kinds of great things took place. God prepared us for what was next. Now, I'm saying all that to bring you to today. The title of my message today is The End with a question mark at the end of it. Let me ask you a question. If the end was going to come in the next 6 weeks, if the end was coming, what would you do now? Now, some of you would say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do nothing. Because the end's coming, nothing I'm going to do is going to make any difference. I'm not going to go to my job anymore. I've got enough cash in the bank so I can make it till the end. So I'm not going to do anything. I don't think that's necessarily a wise answer to say it that way or do that kind of thing. But I know some people would look at it as they're out to keep from doing anything at all. But here's the next thing. What about people that if the end came and they aren't ready, what would you do? Now, I understand that there's some people that you possibly don't give a rip whether they make it to heaven or not because you've had some particular confrontation with them in the past that's made it to the place that there's such a wedge between you and them that you really don't care about them and what goes on in their lives. But let's forget about those people right now and let's just talk about those that are close to home. How many has family members that do not know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, or they're not serving God today? Let me see your hand. I don't think there's probably a person in the room that wouldn't have their hand lifted up because every one of us knows somebody that doesn't know God, and they're close to us. Now, let me ask you another question. How many of you in the room want them in heaven with you? Absolutely. Same amount of hands went up again because we all want them in heaven with us. But let me take it a step further and let me ask you another question. This is not one that can be answered by lifting of hands. Who's going to tell them? Are you going to depend upon somebody else to carry the message to them and share the message with them? Or are you going to take on the responsibility today of saying, I have got to do everything within my power to make sure that my family knows God? The next 3-4 weeks, actually the month of April, is possibly one of the biggest months in the church year. It's not Christmas. It's around Resurrection Day. There's all kinds of activities that goes on around Resurrection Day. You know, if you want to call it Easter, you can. For me, it's Resurrection Day. And when I start looking at that day and the events up to that day, I start looking at what happens in our world, and more people are going to start getting ready. In fact, people are going to spend money between now and Resurrection Day to buy the best dress, a brand new suit of clothes, new shoes for the kids, and a fancy Easter dress for the girls and a little suit for the little boys, and they're going to bring them to the house of God on that day. They don't think about anything else the rest of the year about going to church, but now over the next few weeks, they're going to be thinking about what am I going to do, because there's something about Easter that even though we may not be in service during the remainder of the year, but there's something about Easter, people come to church. So the greatest opportunity, you know, when I look at what I see happening here at Victory Church, our praise and worship on Sunday morning is not a planned thing. It's a time for us to have an encounter with God. And week after week after week, over the course of this year, we have saw the church getting into that place with God where the Shekinah glory of God is in this room. It's the kind of thing that can transform the lives of sinners. It's the kind of thing that will get people to begin to think about their relationship with God and getting closer to God than they've ever been. And I'm saying this to you today because I believe that this church is on the precipice of something brand new in our lives if we will do it. Now let me tell you something. We will stay the church that we are right now. No bigger than we are. No more happening that we've got happening right now. There's only one key thing, and that is you. That's you. It's you reaching out to those that you lifted your hands about a moment ago and saying, I want you to come to the house of God with me. I found myself one more time over the last several weeks. I've been going through this deal. In fact, it seems like every time I try and get away from it, somebody else mentions something else. In fact, somebody was talking about a few days ago, you've just got to go to wherever it's at. I think it's in Kentucky where they built the ark and supposedly have a pretty correct facsimile of what the ark was, Noah's ark. And I had started thinking about the ark, and as I began to think about the ark and the time that Noah had to spend to build that ark and to do what God had called him to do, one man, basically one family, building that monstrosity that I'll give you some stats on in just a few moments. But when I start looking at that and I think about him and the things that he went through to build that ark, because that ark became the place that his family was going to go inside. And see their lives saved. And I know that some of you have a different idea about it than me. But let me tell you what this building is. It's not a building. It's not even a church. You're the church. You know what this building is? It's an ark. At least it should be. You can make it into whatever you want it to be. It can be a place of fellowship. But it can be a place that's an ark for your family. A place that they know that they can get, if they can just get there, they'll be safe. When they go through the trials of life and all of a sudden things start coming against them bigger than they've ever thought possible for them to be able to conquer, they just know that if they can get to the ark, there's something about the ark. If I can just get inside the ark, it can make a change for me. Now, I can talk to you and say that any amount of finance you would put into building the ark would seem like nothing when the flood comes. I could say all of that to get you to the place that you'd be willing to give and help us to do something bigger than what we have in this building right now. That's not what I'm saying it for. I'm here to tell you I'm not worried about the ark as much as those who are going in it. Because we got the ark. You don't have to worry about building the ark. The ark is built. Now, it's getting our family, our friends, getting them in the ark. I started thinking about the uncertainty of time. I've had some things happen over the last few weeks. There's times that I'll just tell you the honest to God truth. I get cynical with the cynical. Maybe that's a play on words with you, and you may not necessarily understand what I'm saying when I say that. But there are so many cynical people in the world today, and I'm getting cynical about those cynical people. That's what I'm saying. And people want to develop this cynical attitude about everything in life. And, you know, let me give you my example of it. The reason I'm saying what I'm saying. Everybody's looking for the Antichrist. And every few years, there's a new person comes up, and everybody says they're going to be the Antichrist. I'm not looking for the Antichrist. I'm looking for the King. Are you with me? Why are you spending your time on something so stupid? Are you with me? As who is the Antichrist? I don't care. He has no part of me. Did I say it? I've been wanting to say that for some time, and there's a few people I want you to go take it to them. That God doesn't care about the Antichrist. He cares about the souls of your kids, because the Christ is coming back. The real real Christ is coming back, and they've got to be ready. Stop looking for the Antichrist and start looking for the King. That's good. I didn't know that was back there. Am I going up? Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we'll go into such and such a city, spend a year there, buy, sell, make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then it vanishes away. This week, Jeannie and I went to Oklahoma and we attended 2 funerals while we were there. One of those funerals was more depressing than the other. Neither funeral was filled with tears. Both funerals was filled with a lot of celebration. It was a happy time in the funerals. But one of the funerals that Jeannie and I went to, we get there and we're sitting down and we're waiting for the family to come into the room. And many of the people that's in this family were kids that Jeannie and I have been a part of their lives for 50 plus years. And so we're sitting there and all of a sudden family starts walking in. And as they start walking in, I had this major slap on the face, it seemed like, and a crush to my insides because I began to look at people walking in, and they weren't the young people that I knew 50 years ago. They were stooped, they were gray-headed, they were wrinkle-faced, and I had to look through the wrinkles and the gray hair and the stooped bodies, and some of them who had become heavier than they were back at that particular time. And as I began to look through this group, all of a sudden, I see people that now are old and maybe only a few years away from their lives going to heaven. And as I'm looking at all these different ones, in fact, one person that came into the room, Jeannie never recognized him, and it was one of her first flames. I thought, I'm still a whole lot better than that. Woo! But you know what I saw? I saw people's lives coming to an end. And as I looked at all of this, I looked at a younger generation there, because there was a younger generation there. One of them came up to me. I shook his hand. He actually had given the obituary for his father's funeral that day. The last time I had saw him, he was a little boy. Now he is a man with grandchildren himself. When I look at their lives and I see the transformation that's come in them, the thing that causes me concern is the fact is I have so few years left. So few years left. You know, there's individuals in this room today that you don't have a clue about the end of days in your life, because your life's still young and you've got a life in front of you. I envy you. Jalen, I'd like to be your age again. Blake, I'd like to be your age again. Whitley, I'd like to be your age again. It ain't gonna happen. I know that my time here on this planet is short. I think in Spanish it's corto, something like that. My life is short. I have very little time left. If I'm going to do anything for God, I've got to do it now. You say, but Pastor, you've had success in the past. Past success does not fuel the fire in me for today. I cannot live on past success. I must have success today. I've got to see lives change today, because there's still some individuals that's playing around with God. One day in church, one day out of church, around church, close to church. But can I say something? You can be a person who attends church week in and week out, and just attending church doesn't make you a Christian. Just like living in a barn doesn't make you a cow. Are you with me? You've got to have the relationship. There's got to be something transformed, changed inside of your life. So when I began to think about all this and look at it, Matthew 24 came into play. He says, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. And when it talks about this, there's some things that I think come into play that I don't have time to get into all the broader part of it. You can read about it in Genesis that I give to you just a little bit later in the scriptures. But the days of Noah was a time of wickedness. And the wickedness that was going on at that particular time dealt with sinful devices that were going on in their lives that I'm not going to necessarily get into a controversial mode with you this morning, but it's very much similar to where we're at today. Now, I've been preaching about the days of Noah for a long time, but I'm going to tell you the truth. There was a lot about what happened in Noah's day that when I was preaching about it 30 years ago didn't come into play yet. Because we have developed a society of people in the United States and in our world that is very perverse and away from God. Do I have to? Can I just leave it at that? And when I look at all of that, it makes me understand He's coming soon. No one knows the hour. No one knows the day. But He's coming. For as in the days before the flood, people were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage up to the day that Noah entered the ark. You know, some of what happens is we play around with life and we just develop this attitude. I got plenty of time. I'm just going to play and enjoy myself. I'm going to have happiness in life. I'm just going to have a good time. And we keep on with this, and we ignore the fact that the end is coming. The flood is coming, as it was in the day of Noah. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken, the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill. One will be taken, the other left. Therefore watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day the Lord will come, But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would have not let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect. Stop with that. So, when I think back to two grinding, two working together, I really believe this, that if you're working with somebody, there has to be a relationship thing, don't you? So, if there's a relationship thing and you're two there together, and it says one will be taken and the other left, God really dealt with me about this. Who is going to be the one that could have made an impact on that other person? It's the person who is closest to him most of the time. Maybe it's a person on your job that God wants you to speak into their life. You say, but that would be hard for me to do. Okay, let me ask you a quick question, and I'm going to stop. In fact, I'm not going to preach much longer this morning. If two of you are next to a fire, a raging fire, and you see that person walking into the fire by accident, what would you do? Oh, it's just not politically correct for me to touch a person. With some water. But there is a fire that lasts eternally. And we've got friends and relatives and people we're close to that's on their way to that fire. So what are we going to do? We're going to love them out of the fire. We're going to pull them out of the fire. Oh, God. So you have an opportunity in the next, thank you, sweet one. You have an opportunity in the next 3 weeks to bring people to church and them experience God and possibly pull them out of the fire. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? Just simple. Why wouldn't you do it? See, the last thing, I want to read it to you. Genesis chapter 7. Noah had finished building. He got everything and put it in the ark. His family is all now inside. And the scripture says in Genesis 7, and they went into the ark to Noah, 2 by 2, talking about the animals, all the flesh, in which is the breath of life. So those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him. And then this part is said, the Lord shut him in. I think it's in the regular King James Version, it says, and the Lord shut the door. Now, the Lord shut the door. The Lord shut them in. Now, I got to ask you a question. Do you think that Noah had neighbors and friends that when the rains came, they came and beat on the side of the ark and said, let us in? Do you think that happened? Why didn't he let them in? The Lord shut the door. And once God shuts the door, God shuts the door. He just shuts the door. I think it's Matthew 25. I didn't put it in your notes this morning because I knew I'd go on forever if I did. Matthew 25 talks about the wise and the foolish virgins. And as it talks about the wise and the foolish virgins, it says, get ready, because the bridegroom comes. The foolish went and they said, our lamps are going out, we got to get oil. But you see what happened while they were out trying to get what they felt they needed, the Lord came. After that time, it was too late. Because God had come. It had already been taken. The other group was gone. No changing could be done. No reversing what happened. It was over. And you say, you're making this sound so abrupt, unchanging. No, it's what it is. Stop thinking you have got a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time. Call this a commercial. Call it whatever you want to. I don't know when the end's coming, question mark. I don't know. I think it's probably quicker than what some of us think. I really believe that when you start looking at the junk that's going on in our world today, he has to come back quick. I really believe that. I don't think it's going to be very long. However you see it, it's immaterial. It may be that God will shut the door on somebody close to you in the next few months. And you will have the opportunity of them being on the right side of the door through what you do now. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait. Because your wait could make it too late. Too late.
We hope you enjoyed this message from Victory Church. For more information about Victory Church or to browse our media library, find us online at www.victorychurchnwa.com. Thanks be to God, who always leads us in victory.